The silent distress call. The alien colony ship Kareth's Hope floated like a dead insect between the remains of two shattered moons. Its once bright hull was scorched black. Half of its engines hung broken. All around the ship drifted silent wreckage from other vessels that had never escaped the raider attack. The star at the center of the system was a faint red ember, throwing long shadows over everything. Inside, dim emergency lights flickered along narrow corridors. Every sound echoed, the hiss of recycled air, the clatter of loose metal, the slow heartbeat of a dying reactor. In the control room, Commander HFY stood bent over a cracked display screen. Her scales, once a healthy silver blue, were now dulled with exhaustion. Behind her, a handful of survivors whispered to each other. They were too tired to argue, too frightened to sleep. For 3 days, they had been alone in this dead system. No one had come. No one had answered their calls. Another signal? Asked Pilot Jaw, voice raw from thirst. HFY's frill twitched. We send one every hour, we wait. That is all we can do. Jaw gave a bitter laugh. Wait for what? Ghosts? Even the raiders left. We're nothing but debris now. His words spread through the room like cold water. One of the younger crew, Tia, curled her arms around herself and whispered, "No one will ever find us." Her eyes flicked to the viewport, to the endless dark. No one. But still, the automated beacon pulsed out, static-filled and weak, a faint heartbeat reaching into endless space, despair and the call for help. The survivors lived in the narrow middle decks where life support still worked. Power was rationed. They ate dry rations in silence. Every few hours they tried to boost the transmission, but their equipment was cracked, their antenna bent. Each message sounded like a whisper through storm wind. HFY forced herself to stay calm. She was the last ranking officer left. Her crew needed to see her standing. But at night, alone in the small cabin, she stared at a small holophoto of her broodmates, lost when the raiders struck. She would run her claws over the image and ask the void for mercy. On the 3rd cycle, she gathered the survivors. "We will keep broadcasting," she said firmly. "We will not give up," Pilot Jaw muttered. "Why?" "No one listens. No one cares. The Council has abandoned us. The fleet is gone." His voice rose. "We are ghosts already." HFY's eyes narrowed. "Then ghosts we may be, but ghosts can still fight to be heard." The others tried to smile. They returned to their stations. Buttons clicked. Screens flickered. Another message went out. Another small hope released into an ocean of stars. The static in deep space outside, beyond the shattered moons, the void seemed empty. But space is never truly silent. It hums with radio waves, cosmic rays, the faint whispers of old transmissions. In that sea of noise, something new appeared. It was faint. It came from far beyond the edge of known space, a single, narrow-band pulse. The ship's sensors caught it once, then lost it. Jaw blinked at the screen. What was that? HFY leaned over his shoulder. "Show me!" He rewound the data. There it was again, a spike in the noise, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Not a raider frequency, not any known ally, just a clean, sharp tone, Tia whispered. "Is it a ship?" Jaw shook his head. "Too far. Could be an echo. Could be nothing." The bridge fell silent. Even the flicker of the emergency light seemed to slow. HFY's claws tapped against the console. She felt a tremor under her feet, like a ripple through the deck, but that was impossible. The ship's engines were dead. She looked at the star map. Empty space. Nothing there. Nothing at all. Shadows from the void hours past. The survivors whispered less now, as if afraid the dark might hear them. They kept scanning, adjusting frequencies, sending their weak call into the endless black. Outside, debris floated like frozen rain. Then just as Tia leaned toward the screen to adjust the gain, the sensor alarm gave a soft chirp. Not a blare, just a single tone. Her frill rose. "Commander," she said softly, "I'm reading something." HFY hurried over. On the display, a faint shape appeared, a contact far beyond normal detection range. No transponder, no drive signature, just mass. "Big mass, how big?" she asked. Tia's voice trembled. "Bigger than anything I've ever seen," Pilot Jaw snorted nervously. "It's a ghost. It's a sensor echo." The void is playing with us. Vesha stared at the shape. It was moving slowly, too slowly for a raider. Its path was deliberate, cutting across dead space where no one traveled. "Can we hail it?" she asked, jaw-tried. The comm system spat static. No reply. They watched the shape for a long time. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished from the screen. No jump signature, no drift, just gone. Tia whispered, "Was it real or a ghost?" No one answered. Tension builds. Inside the ship night cycle came. The survivors tried to sleep, but every creak of the hull made them sit up. In the mess hall, whispers rose again. Some said it was a raider dreadnought. Some said it was a derelict full of corpses. Some, the youngest, said it was a legend, the lost human warship from stories told long ago. Pilot Jaw scoffed, but even he looked at the viewport with unease. In her cabin, Vesha recorded a new message. Her voice was steady, but her claws trembled. "To any who can hear this," she said, "this is Commander Vesha of the colony ship Carith's Hope. We are adrift in the Kormai system. Supplies low, engines lost. Raiders have taken everything. We are alone." She hesitated, then added, "But something is out there. If you hear this, please respond." She sent the message. She sat in silence. The only answer was the hiss of static. The approach next cycle. The faint contact returned, closer now. Still no signal, but mass readings spiked. The survivors crowded the bridge, staring at the display. "It's coming toward us," Tia whispered. Jaw's frill lay flat. "If it wanted to help, it would answer. It's a predator ship. It's come to finish us," Vesha's tail twitched. "Or it's something else. We'll find out soon enough." They watched the numbers tick down. Distance closing. Slowly, steadily, then the lights flickered, once, twice. The deck trembled again, stronger this time. Tia clutched her console. "That's not us. That's external. Outside the viewport, stars shifted. No, not shifted. Something blocked them. A shape slid across the field of view, blacker than the space behind it. It was vast. It was silent. It cast a shadow across their star map, so large it swallowed their icons. The survivors gasped. Pilot Jaw's mouth hung open. Tia covered her eyes. Commander Vesha stood very still. "Magnify," she whispered. The screen zoomed in. Lines of metal, angles too sharp for nature. No lights, only silhouette. It looked like a blade drawn across the heavens. Then, for the first time in days, the comm panel lit up, not with their signal, but with an incoming one. A voice, low and rough, speaking in an old human dialect that none of them fully understood. "Hold position." The screen went black, cliffhanger ending. The bridge stayed frozen. Only the emergency lights blinked. Jaw swallowed hard. "Did you hear that?" Vesha's eyes gleamed. "Human," she said softly. It sounded human. Outside, the enormous shadow drifted closer, slow as a rising tide. No drive flames, no visible weapons. Just silence and mass. The survivors huddled together. Their whispers returned, but now they were different. Not despairing, not hopeless. Something new crept in. Fear, yes, but also a spark of hope. On the star map, the shadow filled the screen. The ship's weak sensors could not measure its full length. It was too big, too far beyond anything they had ever known, and yet it was here, coming closer. No one spoke. The Kormai system lay silent except for the faint pulse of the survivor's beacon. The great shadow that had filled their view hours before had slipped back into the dark, leaving nothing but static on the sensors. For a moment hope had bloomed, and then it had drained away again. In the cramped control room of the Carith's Hope, Commander Vesha stood rigid, claws tapping against a dead console, listening for the voice that had said, "Hold position." It had not returned. Around her the others worked with the quiet movements of exhaustion. Far across the stars, in a bright council chamber built of silver stone, voices clashed like blades. Representatives from half a dozen worlds sat in a circle of light. News of the raider attack on the colony ship had reached them, but no one wished to act. "It is not our concern," said one with wings folded tight. "We cannot risk ships for strangers," another hissed. "The raiders have grown bold. Any fleet we send will be destroyed. Better to do nothing." The debate swelled until an old scholar raised a trembling hand. He spoke of a story passed down for generations, of a Terran warship lost beyond the charted lanes, a vessel of impossible size and power. Some claimed it had been destroyed, others that it drifted between stars, silent and waiting. The chamber grew still. No one wanted to speak the name aloud, yet everyone knew it. The human fleet had vanished centuries ago in a war no one fully understood. Its disappearance had left a hole in the balance of power, a shadow over every star map. The idea that one of those ships still existed felt like a child's tale told to frighten raiders. But the old scholar insisted he had seen new data, a faint signal, a movement in deep space. "If it is true," he whispered, "it may already be moving." Back on the Carith's Hope, Tia adjusted the scanners with trembling fingers. Her eyes were rimmed with red from sleeplessness. She whispered to herself, it was real. It had to be real. Jaw paced the deck, his frill flat, muttering about predators and traps. "Nothing good hides in the dark," he said again and again. Vesha ignored him. She was replaying the recording of the human voice, distorting it, slowing it down, trying to decode more words. The language was old, but she understood the tone. Command, not threat. She thought of the legends told to cadets when she had trained years ago. Stories of humans who had built warships like floating cities, ships that could cross the void without gates, ships with weapons that could shatter moons. She had never believed them. Now she stared at the shadow on the star map and wondered if belief had been too small. In the black between stars, something moved. The Carith's Hope could not see it, but its faint signal leaked into the void. Elsewhere, small listening stations on forgotten asteroids caught a pulse they could not identify. Traders whispered of a mass reading the size of a continent, sliding through dark lanes where no ship should be. Rumors spread like cracks in glass. The lost fleet was stirring. Some called it a ghost armada. Some called it vengeance. On the Council world, debate turned to fear. If a human warship had survived, would it recognize them as allies or enemies? Would it protect or destroy? No one knew. Yet the old scholar smiled faintly. "If it is truly out there," he murmured, "the raiders will not be our greatest worry. The galaxy will tremble." Vesha stared out the viewport at the burned-out star. The dark felt thicker now, pressing close against the hull. She could feel the eyes of her crew on her. They were waiting for orders she did not have. She lifted her chin. "We keep transmitting," she said quietly. "We keep watching." As she spoke, the ship's lights flickered once, just as they had before the shadow appeared. On the edge of the star map, a new reading blinked, a narrow spike of energy gone almost at once. Tia's voice was a whisper. "It's back," Jaw hissed through his teeth. Or it never left. The crew leaned over the screen. A line of mass readings flickered and faded. Vesha's heart hammered. In the deep of space, invisible to their eyes, something vast shifted course. The faintest echo of a human code brushed across their receivers, not words, but a pattern. It felt like a breath drawn before speech. In the silver chamber on the Council world, the old scholar stared at his private console. He saw the same pattern appear in his secret feed. His hands trembled. He whispered the name of the lost ship under his breath. On the Carith's Hope, Vesha reached out and touched the screen. "If you can hear us," she said softly, "we are still here." No reply came, only the endless hiss of stars. Yet every being in that room felt the same thing. Something old was moving. Something human, something that had not spoken in a very long time, was about to speak again. The camera would linger on the survivors' faces, on the flicker of fear and hope mixed together. Outside the viewport, the darkness rippled, as if a current flowed through it. In that ripple, shapes began to form, too faint to name, as if a fleet of shadows were sliding closer, silent and immense. The cliffhanger would leave only the faintest suggestion of hulls, the size of cities, and the ghostly glow of symbols no alien. I had seen in centuries the first whispers of a lost fleet returning from the void. The Carith's Hope floated without lights now. Commander Vesha had ordered every system except life support shut down. No engine hum, no running lights, no beacon. Inside, the corridors were dark, lined with pale emergency glow strips that barely lit the faces of the crew. In the silence, even a whispered breath felt too loud. They drifted between two blackened moons, hidden from open space. Outside, the wreckage of raider ships turned slowly, catching faint starlight. The survivors had learned to fear noise and movement. The raiders had gone quiet, but everyone knew predators in deep space could wait for days. Tia sat at her console with her hands hovering over dead screens. She kept glancing at the star map, where the last unknown contact had flickered and vanished. "It's still out there," she whispered. Her voice was like a small sound in a vast cave. "I can feel it." Pilot Jaw leaned against the wall, arms folded, frill tight to his skull. "Feel what? Ghost stories? If it was real, it's gone." He glanced at the viewport where only blackness showed. We're the only things left. Vesha moved quietly among them. Her eyes swept the darkened control room. She did not tell them she felt it too. The pressure of something large and unseen nearby, like a storm before it breaks. She checked the life support readouts. Air was thin, water low, food almost gone. But she kept her voice steady. "Stay quiet. Stay alert. If anything moves out there, I want to know first." A long hour passed, with nothing but the creak of the ship's hull. Then a sound came, faint, low, like a hum. Not from their engines, not from the wreckage outside. It was as if the dark itself vibrated. Tia's head snapped up. "Did you hear that?" Jaw stiffened. "Hear what?" "The hum," Tia breathed. "It's back." The commander lifted a claw for silence. Everyone held still. The hum came again, slower this time. A deep vibration felt more than heard. The emergency lights flickered once, twice, as if responding. On the star map, no contacts appeared. Nothing to see, only the black. Yet a tremor passed through the deck, a ripple so subtle that even the loose tools on the console trembled. "Something's moving," Vesha whispered. "Right past us." George shook his head, eyes wide. "We'd see it. Our sensors are dead," Tia snapped. "We're blind." A sudden burst of static crackled through the silent comm panel. For a heartbeat, it sounded like a voice, cut off mid-word, then gone. Tia's hands hovered over the controls, afraid to touch anything. "It's trying to talk," she whispered. "Or warn us." The hum grew softer, retreating. The emergency glow strips steadied. Silence again. Outside, the stars were still. Vesha exhaled slowly. Her claws trembled where no one could see. "Stay hidden," she murmured. "Stay hidden and wait." Far away, beyond any of their dead screens, a colossal shadow drifted along their trajectory. It moved with no drive plume, no heat, no signature at all. Along its armored flanks, old symbols glimmered and faded, Terran glyphs long unread by alien eyes. The ship's AI stirred, running checks, listening to the faint pulse from the tiny vessel ahead. Inside the Carith's Hope, the survivors huddled together, whispering about legends. Tia spoke of stories her elders had told of humans building ships that could slip between stars without being seen, ships that vanished into the dark and never came back. Jor called them myths, but his voice shook. Then, just as they began to calm, the emergency lights dimmed to a thin red glow. A new sound came from the comm panel, a single word in a language no one aboard had heard spoken in living memory. The voice was low, rough, unmistakably human. Hold. Silence swallowed the word. The survivors stared at one another. Outside the viewport, a patch of stars winked out as something vast slid between them and open space. The scene lingers there. The tiny, crippled alien ship floating in perfect darkness, the crew frozen, the unknown human warship drifting just beyond their vision. The air in the control room feels heavy, like the pause before a predator strikes or a rescuer arrives. No one knows which. The episode ends on that breathless moment, sensors dead, lights dim, a human voice echoing in the silence, and the sense of something enormous moving between the stars. The Carith's Hope floated like a single spark in a sea of black. The survivors had not slept since the voice. Every breath inside the ship was shallow and careful, as though the air itself might draw attention. Their beacon was still off. Only the faint emergency glow strips lit the bridge in a red haze. making their faces look ghost-like. Tia's hands hovered over her silent console. Her eyes were wide and shining. "It said something," she whispered for the 10th time. "I swear I heard it say something." Pilot Jaw crouched near the viewport, staring out at nothing. "You heard a glitch," he muttered. "Static and fear. That's all." Commander Vesha stood at the center of the bridge. She said nothing. She was listening, not to the crew, but to the silence. It was different now, heavy, waiting. A new pulse blinked on the comm panel. Not their beacon, not the raiders' chatter. A slow, deliberate burst. Then another. Then another. The pattern was too clean to be noise. Tia's claws trembled over the controls. "It's a signal. An old one." She flicked through translation filters. "Not ours. Not raiders. It's—" She stopped. Human Jaw hissed softly. "Humans are gone. Lost. Dead. Those are ghost codes." But Vesha's eyes fixed on the rhythm of the pulses. They were simple, strong. Each one felt like a knock at a locked door. She stepped closer. "Translate." Tia's screen filled with symbols. The machine struggled, broke the message into fragments, and then displayed one single word in the alien's tongue. "Stand by." No one moved. The word hung in the red-lit air like a breath. "Stand by," Tia whispered. "It told us to wait." Jaw's frill flattened. "Or it's lining up its guns." The ship trembled with a low vibration, a soundless pressure felt in bones. The star map flickered, filled for a heartbeat with a shape so vast the system's grid struggled to contain it. Hull-plating outlines, jagged edges, a structure like a fortress drifting without light. Then the image vanished again. On the bridge, the survivors' hearts pounded. "It's here," Tia breathed. "It's right here." A beam of faint blue light lanced through the black, not at them, but near them, sweeping across debris. Their cracked hull rattled as some invisible wave passed over it. One by one, their dead consoles flickered to life. Screens showing old characters none of them could read. The human warship wasn't just broadcasting. It was reaching in. Jaw stepped back. "It's inside our systems." Vesha kept her voice low and calm. "Let it speak," the comm panel crackled. Her voice came low and metallic, a language of old Earth, but spoken slowly, as if choosing each word. The translator struggled, then gave them fragments. "Terran vessel. Acknowledging. Signal received. Hold position. Danger. Approach." The survivors stared at each other. For the first time since the attack, there was something other than despair in their faces. It wasn't relief, not yet. It was a raw, trembling hope mixed with fear. Vesha straightened. "Respond," she said quietly. Tia hesitated. "What do I say?" "Say we hear it," Vesha whispered. "Say we are still alive." Tia's claws danced over the console. A weak burst of code shot into the dark. Seconds passed, no reply. Then the deck vibrated again, stronger, like a heartbeat under their feet. Outside, a shape rolled slowly into view. Not lights, not engines, just mass blotting out the stars. Angular, towering, silent. For a moment it looked like a mountain drifting through the void. Along its edges, faint glyphs glowed and faded. Huge turrets like claws of stone turned slowly, but not toward them. A section of its hull opened like a mouth. Inside was only darkness, but the darkness seemed to breathe. On the bridge of the Kareth's Hope, no one spoke. Even Jaw's defiance was gone. They stared at the silhouette of a human warship, alive, awake, impossibly large, sliding into position beside their broken ship. The comm panel blinked again. More fragments appeared on Tia's screen. "Identify. Survivors. Prepare. Transfer. Do not transmit. Hostile forces near." Tia looked at Vesha, voice trembling. "It's telling us to be silent. It's coming to get us." Vesha's claws tightened on the console. Her heart pounded. She had dreamed of rescue, but never like this. She looked at the shadow filling their viewport and spoke softly, almost to herself. "If you are real, then help us." Outside, the warship's hull glimmered faintly, as though it had heard. Then all their systems went dead again. Only the faint glow of the emergency strips remained, and the image of the enormous ship blocking out the stars. The scene would hold there, on the edge of contact. The tiny alien vessel dwarfed by a silent giant. A single message lingering on the dead screen: stand by. In the distance, beyond their senses, something else stirred. The raiders returning, or something worse. But for now, the void belonged to the Terran ship. The Carith's Hope hung like a crippled insect against the shadow of the Terran warship. No stars showed through the thing's vast hull. Its shape was so huge, the survivors could no longer tell where space ended and the vessel began. Only their own flickering glow strips lit the bridge. For a long time, nothing moved. The alien crew huddled around their dead consoles, staring out at the mass that dwarfed them. In the dark, the warship looked like a mountain drifting through a black sea. No engines, no lights, no sound. Then, without warning, the deck under their feet pulsed, a single low thrum, like the beat of some enormous heart. The comm panel lit for an instant, then went black. Every hair and frill on every neck rose. Tia clutched her console. "It's awake," she whispered. Pilot Jaw backed away from the viewport. "We should run," he hissed. "We should run before it finishes whatever it's doing." Commander Vesha stayed where she was, eyes fixed on the void. She had never seen a ship this size, never felt a presence like this. "It told us to stand by," she said softly. "So we stand by." Another thrum rolled through the hull. Outside, faint pinpricks of blue light flickered along the warship's edges, like cold stars being born. They grew brighter, running down the length of the hull in straight lines, tracing weapons, hatches, towers. What had been a silhouette now became a machine of deliberate shape, a warship waking from a long sleep. Inside the Carith's Hope, every dead screen suddenly filled with symbols, ancient Terran glyphs scrolling too fast to read. One by one, the survivors' translators tried to keep up and failed. The comm panel clicked and hissed. Then a new voice came through, clearer than before, low and commanding. "Terran vessel resolute. Awakening protocols complete." Defensive grid engaged. Tia's mouth dropped open. "It gave its name," she whispered. "Resolute." The survivors watched as entire sections of the Terran hull shifted. Huge panels folded back. Towers rose like the spines of some giant beast. Massive cannons rotated, their barrels glowing faintly as power flowed into them. There was no sound, but everyone felt the vibration through the void, a kind of pressure, like a storm about to break. Jaw's voice cracked. "It's arming itself." Vesha did not look away. "It's protecting us. Or itself." She took a breath. "Either way, stay calm." From the shadowed depths of the warship, a bay door the size of a city block irised open. Darkness yawned beyond. A soft blue beam reached out, touching the hull of the Carith's Hope like a finger of light. Their consoles flickered back to life. Emergency power levels rose without warning. Even their air scrubbers hummed with new strength. It was feeding them energy. Tia's eyes filled with tears. "It's saving us!" But then another signal burst across their panels, sharp. Urgent alien raiders. The long-range scanner, momentarily boosted by the warship's touch, showed 3 predator ships sliding into the system, drawn by the faint pulse of prey on the Resolute. The blue lights along its hull flared white. Cannons locked. Silent targeting arrays turned toward the incoming threat. The ship spoke again, this time with edges of steel in its voice. Hostile signatures detected. Defensive action imminent. Survivors maintained position. The bridge of the Carith's Hope vibrated with a low rumble. For the first time since the attack, Jaw's defiance broke into awe. "It's going to fight for us," he breathed. Vesha's claws tightened on the console. "Or fight near us." "Hold steady." Outside, the void began to glow. Energy built in the warship's weapons, threads of light crawling across its armored flanks. The raiders came on, unaware of what waited in the dark. Between them and their prey, the human warship unfurled its wings of steel. The survivors could only watch, tiny, powerless, dwarfed by a legend come alive. In the growing light of the Resolute, their faces were pale with fear and wonder. The void shivered with anticipation. The Carith's Hope clung to its fragile orbit, dwarfed by the immense Terran warship Resolute. Outside, the 3 raider vessels glided silently toward them, engines dead to avoid detection, drawn by the tiny pulse of a crippled colony ship. Their jagged hulls reflected faint starlight like sharpened teeth. Inside the bridge of the Carith's Hope, every eye was fixed on the massive silhouette beyond the viewport. Tia's claws hovered over the console, fingers trembling. "They're getting closer," she whispered. Her voice was tight with fear. "They'll be here in minutes." Pilot Jaw leaned against the wall, frill bristling. "I told you. Nothing good lurks in the dark. If that ship doesn't kill them, they will kill us." He swallowed, eyes darting to the star map. "And if Resolute isn't careful..." Commander Vesha raised a claw to silence them. "Resolute knows exactly what it's doing. Watch, wait, don't interfere." She stepped closer to the viewport. "And be ready. Whatever happens, we survive together." The raiders struck first. Without warning, beams of green energy ripped from the nearest raider ship. They burned a line across space, narrowly missing the Carith's Hope. Sparks of ionized particles reflected against the hull of the Resolute. The Terran warship responded instantly. Blue-white flashes ran along its armored flanks, weapons powering up. The silence of the void shattered. A thunderous pulse vibrated through the Carith's Hope's deck. Every console flickered. Emergency lights dimmed, then flared back. On the viewport, the Resolute extended massive weapon arrays. Turrets the size of small buildings rotated with perfect, deliberate speed. The first shot streaked across the void. It hit the lead raider vessel like a hammer, ripping a jagged gash across the hull. Explosions bloomed in space like frozen fireworks. Fragments of the raider drifted outward, glowing faintly before vanishing into the black. Tia gasped. It's too powerful." Jaw's frill was flat against his skull. "We're witnessing legends." The battle grew worse before it could get better. The remaining raider ships unleashed volleys. The Carith's Hope shivered as small energy bolts passed by, brushing the hull. Dust and debris from destroyed raiders tumbled across the viewport like cosmic snow. The Resolute responded with surgical precision. Its weapons fired in waves, sweeping across space with silent efficiency. Every shot destroyed raider drones before they could reach the colony ship. Each time a beam struck, the survivors flinched, not from fear alone, but awe at the sheer scale of power. Vesha kept her eyes on the shadows beyond. "Hold still," she murmured. "Do not make a sound." "Let it fight," Tia whispered. It's alive." Jaw's mouth opened, but no words came. He could not describe the motion, the rhythm, the way the massive warship moved through the void, as if space itself bent to its will. Time stretched unnaturally. The raiders' tactics grew desperate. They tried to flank the Resolute, to hit weak points, but the human warship anticipated every move. Its turrets swept clean arcs. Its engines, though invisible, shifted the ship with subtle adjustments faster than the eye could follow. One raider ship, larger and blacker than the others, charged directly at the Carith's Hope. Tia screamed. Jaw reached for the controls, ready to maneuver. "Stay still," Vesha barked. "It's protecting us." A long beam of blue-white energy shot from the Resolute, slicing through the approaching raider like a blade through smoke. The larger raider disintegrated in seconds, leaving nothing but a trail of debris. The survivors' breaths caught in unison. Tia whispered, It saved us." Vesha nodded, but her eyes were never leaving the viewport. "It's not just saving us. It's showing them the power of humanity." Suddenly, a fragment of the destroyed raider ship collided with the Carith's Hope, spinning the vessel in a lazy, terrifying arc. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered violently. Tia scrambled to stabilize the systems. Jaw cursed under his breath. "We're going to die spinning in the void." Vesha gritted her teeth. "Keep your claws on the controls." "We ride the storm." Outside, the Resolute rotated a section of its hull toward them. Energy fields shimmered like invisible walls. Debris from the raiders bounced harmlessly off. The human ship acted not just as protector, but as a living shield surrounding the tiny colony vessel in layers of defense. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. Every shot from the raiders was countered, redirected, destroyed. Every strike of the Resolute sent fragments spiraling through space. The void itself seemed to hum with the tension of the battle. Then, the largest raider vessel attempted a sudden retreat, hoping to escape the wrath of the Terran ship. But the Resolute tracked it instantly. A massive beam lanced from its forward array. The raider hull twisted, then split with a soundless snap, leaving the survivors staring at the remnants drifting through blackness. Tia's hands shook. "It's over," she said, almost not believing it. Jaw exhaled slowly. "No, it's just—" Showing what it can do, Vesha looked at the viewport. The raider ships were gone, scattered, destroyed. But a new shadow moved far beyond the battlefield, something larger, unknown. The battle had ended, but the war had not. She whispered to herself, almost a prayer, "Humanity is back." But at what cost? The bridge fell silent. Even Tia's trembling fingers rested on her console. The only sound was the soft hum of life support and the faint pulse from the Resolute beside them. The massive ship was quiet again, but now awake, alive. And watching, the Careth's Hope floated quietly beside the massive human warship. Resolute, its blue-white energy fields shimmering faintly in the void. The battle with the raiders had ended, leaving fragments of debris drifting silently. The survivors were exhausted, trembling with relief, but the danger was far from over. Inside the bridge, Tia leaned against a console, her claws shaking. "They saved us," she whispered. "They actually saved us." Jor did not answer. His eyes never left the viewport. "Saved us. But why?" he muttered. "Why not just destroy everything and leave?" Vesha's tail flicked nervously. She had the same question. The warship had acted with precision, shielding them, destroying the raiders, but it had not communicated clearly. No human had boarded them. No rescue team appeared. They had been saved, yes, but at a cost, yet unknown. The comm panel crackled, and the Resolute spoke again, low and measured. The translator struggled, then spit out broken sentences. "Survivors identified. Immediate transfer protocols pending. Warning, mission parameters require cooperation. Failure will result in recalibration of engagement priority." Tia's eyes widened. "Transfer protocols. What does that mean?" Jaw hissed. "It means we don't get out alive unless we follow orders." Vesha stepped closer to the viewport, looking at the immense shape of the Resolute. Even in this quiet, the ship radiated power. Turrets were lowered, but still tracking, engines idling in ways that defied understanding. It was alive, aware, and patient. A new message appeared on the comm panel. "Information required. Threat identified beyond Cormai system. Survivors will assist. Non-compliance not recommended." The survivors exchanged frightened glances. The Resolute did not ask for fuel, supplies, or technology. It demanded intelligence, knowledge about the raiders, about hidden dangers in the sector, perhaps about the greater powers of the galaxy. It was a cost they had not expected. Tia swallowed hard. "They want us to tell them things." Vesha's claws tapped against the console. "We have to decide," she said quietly. "We can take the chance and survive, or refuse and die. There's no middle ground." Jaw's voice rose. "We've barely escaped one battle, and now they want us to spy? To put ourselves in the middle of whatever war they're fighting?" Vesha shook her head. "It's not a choice. If we refuse, they leave us. And then what? Raiders, predators, total annihilation." The crew huddled together, murmuring quietly. They feared humans, legends they had been taught to revere, yet the reality of the Resolute was undeniable. It was not just a ship. It was a force, a weapon, a guardian, and now it demanded loyalty in exchange for survival. Outside, a new signal appeared on the long-range sensors. Massive, almost unidentifiable. The human warship's AI immediately responded, turning a section of its hull toward the source. Another threat. Something far larger than the raiders? The Resolute moved with calm precision, weapons ready, scanning the darkness beyond the Cormai system. Vesha swallowed. "The price of rescue is more than we imagined," she murmured. "We survive, but we owe them. We follow their path." Tia nodded slowly. "And if we don't?" Yor's tail twitched, but no answer came. Silence filled the bridge, heavy and tense. The Resolute's hull shimmered faintly in the void. Its energy fields pulsed, almost like a heartbeat. It was patient, calculating, and it did not hurry. The humans were not here to bargain. They were here to take what was necessary. And the survivors, fragile, broken, grateful, had no choice but to comply. Vesha turned to her crew. Prepare for transfer. Prepare to answer. We do not know what they want, but we will survive. Outside the viewport, the void stretched endlessly. Stars gleamed dimly. Far away, the shadow of another massive ship stirred, larger than the raiders, older than any record, moving silently toward the system. The Resolute shifted its massive bulk to intercept it. Bringing its full power into alignment, the camera would linger on the survivors' faces, pale but resolute, and then slowly pan outside to the Resolute preparing for action. Its weapons glowed faintly. Hull panels shifted into defensive posture, and the unknown approaching shadow loomed in the distance. The void stretched endlessly before the Cormai system. The Carith's Hope floated beside the Resolute, its small hull dwarfed by the colossal Terran warship. The crew had obeyed, provided what information they could, and survived the initial encounter. But now the air thrummed with something far greater, a presence in the void that no legend had fully prepared them for. Vesha stood at the viewport, claws gripping the railing. Whatever comes next, she whispered, we face it together. Tia nodded, her eyes wide but steady. Yours frill was flattened, his usual defiance replaced by awe. Even exhausted and terrified, they all felt the same thing, hope. The Resolute was alive, awake and ready. Humanity had returned, then the sensors lit up. Faint signatures first, and then dozens, hundreds stretching across the black like a constellation of steel. Entire fleets, long thought lost, erased from history, emerged from the void. Human warships, massive, glimmering with power beyond imagination, formed a line that spanned light years. The legends were real. Humanity had not vanished. It had been waiting, watching, preparing. The raiders had not expected this. They scattered in confusion, unable to comprehend the sudden emergence of ships whose guns could vaporize worlds. The Resolute surged forward, its shields glowing with energy as it positioned itself to protect the small Carith's Hope. Inside the tiny alien ship, the crew watched in awe as blue-white energy flared across the void. Turrets rotated with deadly precision, beams of concentrated fire slicing through enemy vessels. Explosions blossomed silently against the black, fragments spinning like frozen stars. Look at them, Tia whispered. They're unstoppable. Jor's eyes gleamed. Humans, they've come back. Vesha felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. Fear, yes, but also pride. These beings had survived unimaginable odds, returned to the stars, and now wielded power that even the greatest fleets of the galaxy could not match. And they had chosen to protect them. The larger shadow that had stirred in the distance began to move. A massive alien dreadnought, older than recorded history, slipped from the darkness, drawn to the conflict. Its silhouette was monstrous, wings like a cathedral stretching across the void. The Carith's Hope shivered, the Resolute reacted instantly. Panels opened, turrets rotated, and energy flared along the hull. The human fleet behind it surged forward, a perfect wall of coordinated power. In an instant, the dreadnought found itself outmatched. Every maneuver anticipated, every approach countered, every strike neutralized. Vesha gripped the railing. They're teaching the galaxy fear, she whispered. Jor laughed softly, a sound of relief and wonder. No, they're showing strength. Humanity is alive, and they won't back down. Outside, the battle escalated. The human fleet did not merely fight, it dominated. Ships that had been lost for centuries moved with perfect coordination, cutting swathes through enemy ranks. Alien dreadnoughts that had terrorized sectors fell one by one, vaporized or captured. The survivors' senses were overwhelmed by the scale of power. On the Carith's Hope, Tia turned to Vesha. Do you think they'll protect us? Vesha nodded. They've already protected us. But now we see humanity is more than just a legend. They are a force of nature, and the galaxy will never be the same. Jor tilted his head toward the viewport. We were nothing, a ghost adrift, and now We're witnesses to the return of a civilization that could change everything. The Carith's Hope drifted alongside the Resolute as the human fleet moved to secure the Cormai system. Flares of energy illuminated the wreckage of raiders, drifting asteroids and alien debris creating a silent, breathtaking panorama of destruction and rebirth. The final transmission came from the Resolute, calm and commanding. Survivors, you are safe. Humanity is back. The galaxy will hear our return. Stand ready, allies, while we move together. Vesha closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. The crew of the Carith's Hope had survived, yes, but they had witnessed something far greater, the return of a human civilization that had slept in the void for centuries, now awakening to reclaim its place among the stars. Outside, the stars themselves seemed to tremble as the fleet surged forward. Humanity had returned, unstoppable, unyielding, and now the galaxy would never forget. The camera lingers on the Carith's Hope, a tiny vessel floating beside titanic human warships as they accelerate together into the darkness. The void ahead is uncertain, full of danger, but no longer empty. Hope shines with blue-white energy. Humanity has returned. The episode ends with a wide, cinematic shot of the human fleet cutting across the stars, dwarfed only by the enormity of space itself, a fitting conclusion to the story, yet leaving room for future adventures among the stars.